abstract. Yeah, it's complicated. What you say, the way you act. Well, it makes me so confused. I don't know what to do anymore. Can't you just make up your mind? My heart drops when you play around. How can you be up when I'm down? Don't wanna think about it right now. Maybe you just wanna be friends. There's a fight when we are talking. Maybe you just wanna pretend, but I can read between the lines. Even if I can't deny that all the things you said are hurting. Still wanna be with you. I think you want it too. 'Cause baby, I don't wanna be.
Hi everyone, I'm Jess from jesscrafts.com, and today I wanted to chat with you all about the the class I'm teaching here at the live stream, which is here at the summit. Oh, it's a little early in the morning for me. So I am sharing with you this cutting template and sketch, and it shows you how to cut a 6x6 piece of patterned paper and create two A2 size cards without scraps. So we'll walk through those cards, and here is what they wind up looking like at the end. So we'll make two different cards. I made one for those who celebrate Hanukkah, and then just a general one. And of course, you can retheme these for anything that you want. And they come out and you use different pattern papers, and you can even make your own pattern papers if that's more your style. But I focus on using pattern paper that's already available, but cutting it up in a way that doesn't leave you with a pile of scraps to deal with later, because that is something I struggle with as a card maker. I loved pattern paper, but I didn't love like when I would wind up with a bunch of scraps at the end of using a paper pad. And then I was like, what do I do with all of these? So I have come up with, at this point, over 100 ways to cut pattern paper. I have 50 ways that I cut 6x6 to make A2 cards alone, and 40 different ways to cut 12x12 paper to make A2 size cards. So just like really enjoying my pattern paper without scraps and sharing that with all of you in this class and over on my YouTube channel. And I look forward to answering some of the questions that you guys might have about that and about what I do. Thank you, Sharon. Do I create while traveling? I don't travel very much, but not so much. I've done it though with card making, because I am able to make little like packets with this card making method where I can pre-cut all the pieces and I know how they're assembled. I've got like these plastic folders, and I can put all the pieces in it, and then I can assemble cards while I'm on the go. But then I don't have to like necessarily bring a paper trimmer or something like that, because I just have the pieces. So I can just like, one option is to adhere them all together. But I also do like cross stitching, which is a little bit maybe easier to travel with. So that's another thing I like to do while traveling. I have a big box of 6x6 holiday papers and a very large collection of focal points. This will be a perfect combination for me. Absolutely. Yeah. I've done the same thing where like I'll buy a stamp set that I think is really cute, and I'll stamp a bunch of it out and enjoy coloring it. This is something that I used to like. I've been crafting for like 20 years. So, and then I had really a lot of fun coloring it. And then I was like, oh, now I need to like, make it into a card. What am I going to do? And so having these templates and sketches to go to has made it really easy. Or I enjoy like there's, craft companies make those really cute die cuts that coordinate with their line, or the fancy stickers. And I'm like, those are really fun. And it takes, then I can just pair it with a sketch that looks good with it. And it takes a lot of the overwhelm out of crafting for me personally. Hi, Jess. I must say a big thank you to you for showcasing a project that is for other celebrations/religions. Thank you for being inclusive. Yes. Yeah, I just, my projects, you can make them, for any season and all that. So I thought, there's a lot more ideas out there possibly for Christmas. So, I I personally celebrate Christmas, and so I do make a lot of Christmas cards, but there's no reason you can't adapt them to any holiday. So I try to make sure that I do that on my channel from time to time. And I like to donate my cards, so it's nice if um, I can have other holidays for those when they want to pass out the cards. How do you come up with your card designs? Yeah, this is the question I need to like figure out how to be better prepared for because it's really just kind of I just start breaking down the paper. So I start like, I know I have 6 by 6 inches to work with. And I know my personal style with these card designs is to make all the cards the same. There's like one exception to that in the, 100 plus that I've made where, but anyway, what I do is I'm like, okay, well, if I have a 6 by 6 piece of paper and I want to make 2 cards and they're the same, well, then I could start by cutting in half to 3 by 6 inches. Okay. And then if I have 3 by 6 inches, then what kind of shapes could I fit in there? And at first, I was working with a lot of like rectangles and squares. And then I was like, wanting to kind of move away from that and come up with more and more ideas. So then I started incorporating, like triangles and what if I die cut some shapes and how would that work? And so um just kind of taking that piece of paper and breaking it down by what my goal is in terms of how many cards. And also like I tend to try to make my 6 by 6 templates make 2 cards, but then sometimes I'll be like, I have this cool idea that if in order to make it work, it has to be 3 cards or 4 cards. And so then I will um, also share for that many cards. But I do appreciate that many people, or at least myself, I was trying to um, when I wanted to use my pattern paper, if I take one piece of 6 by 6 paper and make 4, 6 cards, like then I feel like I'm never going to get through my stash. And which is I mean, I'm never going to get through my stash because I keep buying more paper because I love paper. But I, I don't want to make the most cards possible. I want to enjoy making cards. And so I try to keep that in mind in terms of limiting how many. And those limitations help me to get creative in terms of how much space I have to work with in terms of cutting pieces. Do you also do designs where there is no colored cardstock scraps? Not many times. Um, no colored. I don't know that I've ever done that because that's like really challenging to accomplish both at the same time. And this also is like the way it all started was just me thinking about how I craft and making tools that made it easier for myself. And then when I started sharing them, other people were like, yes, I like this. I like to hear more of your ideas about it. And for me, colored cardstock scraps aren't very challenging because I'm like, oh, I could die cut with them. I can, and I think I'll address this in the class today when you get a chance to watch it. But like I'll take 2 or 3 pieces of scrap and I'll glue it together and make what I call fake foam tape. So I'll put that behind an image or I just like I store my scraps with my full sheets of colored cardstock. And so just because it hasn't been a challenge for me, it's not that it's not possible. But something also, if you don't want a lot of colored cardstock scraps, there are some of my designs that don't specifically require you to make mats and a lot of them that work well even without mats. So actually the design from the class that you can watch today or during the summit, you could do this without the cardstock mats so that you wouldn't have to worry about those scraps. These, I believe, are 1.5 inch squares. So 1.5 plus 3 plus 1.5 is less than the width of the card. So you can make it work without that. So there's a different couple ways around the colored cardstock scraps, but I do understand the inclination to, it's kind of, or that's no scraps, but that's very conditional because it's no patterned paper scraps. And I try to be clear about that. What card style is your go-to when you suddenly need a card? Uh, my templates. I know that's kind of like a I don't know, a very expected answer, but because it tells me exactly how to cut the paper and how to assemble it, then I don't have to do that guesswork. And so if I need a fast card, I can go to one of my sketches that doesn't have a lot of little pieces because some of them have more little pieces and some don't. And then I can maybe take a little bit more time in terms of choosing like personalization options. So, like, say I have a birthday party and I know that the person at the birthday party or the person who's we're celebrating really likes dogs. Okay, I can take a time to color up a dog stamp or go through my stash and find paper that matches that or something like that. And so I don't have to do any of the thinking about what my card will look like or where I should cut or any of that. So I really do most of my card making from my sketches at this point. Arlene says, "Do you use your cross stitch pieces on cards?" Very rarely have I. I use them mostly for home decor. You absolutely, there's so many interesting tools out there for cross stitching on cards. It's waffle flower and lawn fawn come to mind in terms of having products made for combining cross stitch and card making. But I haven't quite got to the point in my cross stitching where like I'm overwhelmed with home decor stuff. So I've been kind of slowly building that up. I've only been cross stitching for probably about like a year and a half or something. So I think that that's something I'm open to. Uh, but it's just they're kind of like keeping them a little bit separate for myself for now. Tina says, "Is there something specific that gives you your inspiration and ideas?" Um, Unfortunately, I guess I don't think of anything specific. Like, I certainly look for shapes on small palettes, that kind of thing. So, like, if you can look at like old card making magazines, and I would never take someone else's layout, but I'm just like, oh, they're using a big shape and a small shape, and I like that contrast between those two things. So, how could I turn that idea of the contrast between large and small into a no scrap pattern, but you can also there's like just like I think kind of like magazine layouts, like just thinking about the way like shapes interact with each other. But it's mostly just like I start kind of digitally cutting up the paper in terms of like you know actually, I do draw it out a lot, so I don't so I often have just, like, a sketch pad, and I'll just sort of start, like, "Okay, what if I cut it in half, and then I, take this little portion of it? Will the measurements work out?" And I just kinda start, like, messing around, I guess, and experimenting with what can I fit, how can I divide these shapes easily or divide these, measurements easily, and yeah, I don't have much more than that. What is your favorite color combo? Hmm. I personally really like teal, like a greeny kind of blue or like a sea green, that kind of stuff. So, and then what pairs really well with that is often something in the sort of orange family, but I don't think I actually use that on my card making very often. The nice thing about patterned paper is there's a professional designer who has come up with like what colors look good together. And it lets me get a lot of inspiration from that. So I don't always have to come up with like what color combination looks good. So I'll just be like, well, they put a lot of red and orange in this collection. So I'm just going to keep going with a warm color palette or something like that. So I definitely let the pattern paper guide me a lot. And I am drawn to brighter colors though, generally. So I think I pick a lot of pattern paper that has those bright colors and I kind of continue along with them. Were you a great math student? Math is not my thing. So thank you from Jean. Um, Not particularly. Um, I generally was a pretty good student, but I didn't particularly excel at math, but I kind of think the math that I'm doing is pretty like geometry based, so it's a pretty I guess. Um, Hopefully, remember enough about math that that's the right type of math. But like there's plenty of other like I guess that you're using a lot of math skills and trying to figure out the measurements and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's not something I thought of myself as really liking, but I have always liked designing and like kind of putting things together and experimenting with that. And I do remember enjoying that from childhood and um, figuring out the math has just had to be part of it. So it's not that like I super love math, but not that I don't not like math, but yeah, it wasn't like something I thought of myself as being particularly good at. But it had to come with it to make it work. Suzette says, "What are some of the organizations you donate your cards to?" So, um, on my website, jesscrafts.com, you can at the top it'll say like donate your cards, and you can. It's like I think I'll make a little drop down menu, and I list a bunch of organizations that accept handmade cards. So I have not donated to all these organizations. I am not affiliated with any of these organizations, but I have gathered them over time because this is a question that comes up for me is like, where can I donate my cards? Which is exactly what you said. But you can go there and find that out. I think it might be like where dash to donate as the end of it. But it's pretty easily accessible there. I try to link you to the organization so they can explain what they want. Scrapbook.com has an organization that I think is called Cards for Kindness. Barely Arts has Cards for Cubs. I hope I'm remembering some of the names of these, but um, there are a couple different ones out there. I've really tried to find international ones as well because I have had people. There's a I'm able to find a lot of organizations that you can mail your cards with to that they're based in the US, but I know that that would be very expensive to mail your cards to the US from outside of the US. So I've tried to find organizations in different countries as well, but I always recommend, kind of seeing if there's anywhere you can reach out within your community where they would find the cards helpful, or also thinking about how you can maybe just help your family and neighbors by sharing your cards with them, because a lot of people would love to give your cards. If that was something you wanted to do, or just encourage you to send more cards, because I think sometimes we kind of get caught thinking we have to wait for like a special occasion to send a card, but you can just send weekly cards to your friends or your grandkids or something like that, and they will be sure to appreciate them. But there are a list of organizations that can be helpful. Artistically creative, do you do much paper piecing? It's a very good way to use up your scraps. Yeah, that sounds like an excellent way to use up scraps. I could see how paper piecing things together. I personally don't do that very often, in part because I don't have pattern paper scraps very often at this point in my crafting, because I do use my templates for most of my crafting. I could see that's a way of using your cardstock scraps as well. But that's paper piecing is not so much like is it's not my personal style. Like I am like you think of, like those die cuts that have lots of little pieces, putting them all together, that's kind of challenging for me, like fitting all the little pieces. So I think it's a great way to use scraps. I absolutely encourage everyone to check it out. I've, you know, done it in the past. But yeah, it's just for me, I don't know, like, I get kind of lost in figuring out. I'm definitely that person who needs to, like, if the manufacturer doesn't print it on the back of the die cut, like, how to put all the pieces together, I have to, like, go to their website to figure it out, because sometimes I'm looking at the die going like, "I don't know what this goes to." So, but, I mean, that's a little different than the paper piecing question, but it's just like, I enjoy the fact that I don't really have to think about how to use scraps anymore because I don't make them anymore. So, thank you for all of your questions. I've enjoyed chatting with you today. I know it's a little early in today's classes, but I hope you will check out my class and see how you can make some holiday cards without pattern paper scraps help you to use up your stash, you can head to jesscrafts.com to get a lot more templates. This is the freebie that's available today, so you can sign up and get that. But on jesscrafts.com, there are over 100 other ways for you to cut pattern paper 6x6, 12x12, 6x8, 8x8, make A2 cards, 5x7 cards, slimline cards, and get those made without the pattern paper scraps, and really add some simplicity to your card making if you enjoy patterned paper the way that I do. And I hope that you have a great time watching all the classes at the summit, because there is a lot of talent here.